Hi everyone, I'm here to take a break from the Major Arcana series that I've been doing and to do a reading for someone, a client of mine who will be referred to as J, the letter J. All I can hear now is Gloria from Modern Family in my head. But all that aside, they've ordered a full five operation opening of the key reading. And what I'm going to do is read for them for the present through the rest of the year. Now, I would like to say that I already started this reading on YouTube, and I was doing the direct upload, and that totally froze on me after about 20 minutes of speaking. So I lost all of that. And it was going really well, if I may say so myself. I was really excited at how smoothly it was going. But I now have to start all over again. So I had invoked, I shuffled, obviously. I had cut out the piles, and I even guessed where the significator was on the first try. I was really proud of myself, I'm not going to lie. But I cannot replicate that for you now. But anywho, so I'll just review. My cat is going to decide to get in the way, as he always does. Anywho, so I'm going to recap for you what the 4 piles were about. There are 4 piles that one is supposed to cut. And they sort of went like this. The one that spread out was the earth pile all the way over here. This is fire, water, air, and then earth that's now been spread out because that's where your significator was. And remember, the significator is the card that represents you, the client, J. So your fire pile is the pile of one's ambitions, one's motivations, their creative willpower. It can sometimes be desire, sexual desire, but not always. And in this case, you have the death card, which does not mean that you have a will to die, but, well, not literally. It means that there's a part of you that really wants to let go of what you've been doing for a long time because it's boring. Or it's too much of the same old, same old. You want to basically start something different. And that's a big theme that returns throughout your reading, this desire to do something new, and we'll see that definitely in your earth pile. But basically there's this part of you that wants to let go of, it could be your career currently. I know you're kind of stressed out with your career, and not exactly happy with it. But it's tough because it's like letting go of a part of yourself. It's something that you've done for a long time. It's very much an aspect of who you are. And so letting go of it would be a kind of death. Okay, that's all we're saying. It doesn't mean that you're, literally want to die, obviously. It's not that at all. Your water pile is the chariot. So the water pile represents the form that wants to take. And it is the chariot. And the chariot represents greater mobility. Either you want greater freedom in what you're doing, or you want greater say in what you're doing, greater command over what you're doing. It may also represent that, in order to do this, you might need to move, or there's part of your intuition that's suggesting to you that you might need to move, change locations, or change career fields entirely, something like along those lines. The chariot, I think, also represents greater defense and less stress. The fact that he is very much in a position of repose in his meditative posture is very important. And it's a water card in the water pile, so there's a particularly passive aspect to his nature. So you'd kind of like to take a chill pill. Your air pile is basically the details that emerge from the union of these two things, of fire and water. And so the details are, or the issues are, represented by the Princess of Wands. You have this desire to get out and try something new, but you're unsure of yourself. You're not sure exactly what direction you need to be going in. You know that there's something better out there that you care more about. Maybe you're not even sure what it is, but you are kind of at the point where you know it's not exactly what you're doing. And so you want to do that, but you don't know how. The actual process is either overwhelming or stressful. And then your Earth pile was characterized by the Two of Discs, which really is just, very representative of general change. It is the Lord of Change, but it's the idea of shifting around. Your Earth pile represents the material aspect of the situation, how the situation is playing out materially or in the physical plane, sometimes directly connected to finances. In this case, I think finances are a major issue here. It's, the idea that your finances end up getting shifted around a lot. Your resources end up getting moved around. It's sort of like as soon as you get money, you have to direct it toward some expense. So your wallet doesn't exactly feel secure. And so that's also, a cause for concern and a desire to stay put. You are characterized very passively in this entire situation. Your two passive piles are the strongest piles for you. They're the water card in the water pile and the earth card on the earth pile. So you are very watery and very earthy. And your fire is not so great because it's a water card in the fire pile. They cancel each other out. So death is very weak, even though it's good for you in this case. The Princess of Wands isn't necessarily weak, but she's not exactly happy either. She's more stressed, I think, than anything else. So when I was trying to determine which pile your significator was in, I concluded, I guessed that you were either going to be in the air or the earth pile because, I didn't get a good vibe from either of these two piles in that I just didn't think that they were strong enough to be as relevant. And so I guessed the earth pile, and there you are right here. So now, jumping right into it. Okay. So the card that represents you is the Knight of Discs, and he is, in this case, surrounded by the Seven of Cups and the Ten of Cups. This is more to help those of you who are just tarot people who might be watching this for some tips or, using this as a kind of tutorial. But those two cards, I think, when I was reading this the first time, I said that it was sort of like you invest too much in your home life or your intimate relationships. You expect too much out of them in a way. You expect full happiness from them, and so you're very inclined to just stay put. This isn't to say that you aren't happy where you are as far as close friends and family, or perhaps even lovers and that sort of thing, or lover, sorry, partner. But it's sort of debilitating in a way. It makes you lazy, in essence. And I know it's kind of not exactly great to hear that, that the people we love make us lazy. But in this case, it shows you as being lazy, basically. That, because things are really good the way they are, and because you see that as kind of the fulfillment of your happiness or your personal happiness, it means that you're not exactly as motivated to seek other kinds of happiness that might actually be more fulfilling. And this is getting back to, the Princess of Wands. I'm going to put these aside, by the way, so that I can focus on this pile a little bit better. Okay. So remember, I'm facing the wrong direction, as usual. So we're here. Now I'm going to count 4 to the right for you. I decided that I would count right for him because his significator is looking to the right. And because I've been debating with myself lately whether or not I want to count right or left for men or women, respectively. Because, rightness is associated with masculinity, technically, or activeness, and the left-hand path is associated with femininity or passiveness. So I've been sort of at a debate with myself, but I figured the universe was telling me to go right because he's looking to the right, which is, for those of you who are watching this as a tutorial, that's the original way of determining in which direction you count, because based on which direction the significator is looking. So we count 4, 2, 3, 4, and we hit the 3 of wands surrounded by the, 3 of discs surrounded by the 4 of wands and the ace of cups. To me, this says that, you're very focused on work and just, being productive at work, making your career last. You like to, it might also speak to a cooperative nature that you have, that you might like to not upset anyone, and it could be, your partner or, co-workers, that sort of thing, that you prefer to be cooperative than, at conflict. But the problem is that by doing that, by focusing very much on the mundane aspect of the situation, there's this part of you that does feel like this is all I've got, and that there's nothing else you can possibly do other than what you've already been doing, and so you're cutting yourself off from any other potential happinesses that may want to come your way, and these are entirely undefined as of yet because they're represented by the ace. But they represent any new happiness. It's kind of like by focusing on work and really feeling like that's all you've got to your life or to who you are, you remain closed off. As passive as you are, it's more like a closed-off passivity rather than a receptive passivity. So that's not good. And then we can sort of get at why death is important here. We need to let go for you. 1, 2, 3. We get the Fool surrounded by the Ace of Cups again and the Universe, and I think the Fool. In some ways, I think this speaks to your. I don't know how willing you are to take risks. In some ways, I think you see that. In order to really get new happiness, or you see that the method to getting that would be foolish in a way. You see it as risky or dangerous, and even though it is actually probably very healthy to take that risk, it's sort of like a leap of faith, I think, in this case. You're very grounded as an individual, and as such, your universe or your notion of the universe has become very small. And again, you could benefit from opening yourself up more to things like risk, actually. And obviously, this does not necessarily imply literal physical risk. It just, means trying things new that you might not necessarily be good at, So from the Fool, we get 1, 2, 3. We get the 8 of Swords surrounded by the Universe and the 9 of Pentacles, or discs rather. And again, we're moving in sections of 3 a lot. The number 3 keeps rearing its head. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but again, that sense of cooperation of the number 3, and sort of like this ambiguous sense of form, but not really committing yourself to it, is present here. It's, again, this very passive state that you're in. You're very unactive, or rather inactive is the word I actually want. You're very inactive in regards to the situation as of yet. And it says that one of the big roadblocks that you have, one of the very debilitating roadblocks you have, whether you recognize it or not, is, I think this, well, I want to say that it comes from, like a self-worth you derive from having nice things around you, either, so like investing in things that you don't really need, but, make you happy because they look nice, or there's an aesthetic value to them, or you're just very concerned with financial independence and security and well-being, that this is a very big focus for you, and it's I think in general it shows that your focus tends to be very I want to say kind of mundane, in that you're focusing very much on work, money, and relationship. But there are other things, it says, that you could conceivably branch out into, that you are kind of closing yourself off from. The Eight of Swords is a card that really represents paralysis and restriction. And in this case, it's very negatively aspected, where it's surrounded by two Earth cards. And so it's particularly rigid, and you're particularly locked. It's sort of like you're very set in your ways, too. And so this is a very difficult situation for you, because you feel this nudging, and this tugging at you to do something about it. But again, you're so locked in who you think you are that you can't really move beyond that. So I can understand how this is a very problematic situation for you, and I absolutely sympathize. But again, this is why death is so important. It is sort of like letting go of a big part of yourself, and letting go of habits and modes of thinking that you're very used to and you're very comfortable with. But there's a different part of yourself that you're denying by doing that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a way to kind of reinvigorate your life if you choose it. So from the Eight of Swords, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we get the Prince of Wands, surrounded by the Magus and the Empress. This is interesting because I could either read it as, either as a literal person or as you, to some extent. Someone related to the situation. Because there aren't that many people in this reading as far as court cards, I would say it's more of an aspect of you than a literal person. And I think it represents more, if it does represent other people, it represents people around you that are outgoing and adventurous, and you are not. And I think part of you, the interesting thing is there's an air of almost mistrust around them, with the Magus ill-aspected next to him, and the Empress sort of ill-aspected around next to him. He comes across as ingenuine in a way, and this does not have to be one specific person. This could just be outgoing, extroverted, adventurous people in general in your life, who you sort of treat with general disdain or concern. And in turn, you reflect that back in on yourself, or rather, the reflection that you have on yourself, this idea that, I can't do that. I am only allotted this amount of living, basically, and experience, and therefore anyone else who gets to, do other things are therefore, not good, or something like that, or are untrustworthy for some reason. I don't know. The other thing that I could say about it in a very similar vein is that if it does represent, the more adventurous side of you, the more exploratory side of you, it's a part of you that's very doubtful in its own ability. I know we've talked about this in previous readings for you before as well, that you suffer from a lack of confidence, I think, as far as your skill level is concerned. The Empress also, I think, relates to a sense of longevity and long-term investment, really. So it's kind of like you're unsure whether or not you could really go the distance for that that branching out that you really need. It's kind of wondering if you can really commit to that. goal if you choose to set it for yourself. If we count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we hit adjustment surrounded by the Princess of Cups and the Hanged Man. Okay, you are letting your emotions get in the way also of whatever decision you are making here. I think, adjustment is an air card, and in this case surrounded by 2 very passive water cards. And in some ways, adjustment, which is usually very light and logical and exact, is getting weighed down and literally flooded by the pleasures as represented by the Princess of Cups and the handicap of the Hanged Man. I think. I think that in some ways it's returning back to that idea we had at the beginning of the reading of letting either letting your romantic life or your home life get in the way of your seeing clearly. And I think it's the same sort of thing that, if you gave it a shot, as in, like allowing yourself the space to maybe try something different, you might find that you would really like it and that's more suited for you and the type of person you are. But it's even more, time-consuming a decision to make because at the same time you feel very good about where you are. So really, again, this kind of disappointment you feel about where you are is incredibly subtle, and I'm not sure you even know how to label it. I don't know if I know how to label it really either. It's just sort of general ennui, I think, really just general boredom, and you're not sure why because things are really good. You feel comfortable in the position you are in. But yeah, it's tough to make real clear decisions as a result. So now we're going to count 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So then we hit the universe, which is ill aspected with the Fool and the Eight of Swords next to it. And in this case, this is Saturn in a bad aspect. This is real heaviness to the situation. This is inertia, basically. That you again, there are so many symbols of lockdown in your reading. The Eight of Swords has come up now before. This is the second time. The Hanged Man had a strong presence just now. You're just very much in a rut, and if you don't really know that yourself, then I'm going to tell you that you are, based on what I've got here. You're in a rut, and it's very obvious. And again, that universe feeling really closed off, almost provincial. It's almost like Belle in Beauty and the Beast when she's singing about this provincial life. It's really you feel closed off from any excitement. Now if we're going to count 9 for the universe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, and we hit the Prince of Wands again. So it comes down to whether or not you decide to embrace that part of yourself that wants to adventure more and explore new things and have a less, I guess, literal approach to life. Like we said in the beginning, you're very attached to the things that you're used to, home, career, opinion of yourself. You're very attached to those things, and so it's scary for you to branch out into anything different. But it really depends on whether or not you decide to just take that leap of faith, as I was saying before. So now we're supposed to pair them from the ends in. You can pair it, really, at this point, there are so many rules to this spread that people have come up with that there really is no one way of doing anything, but I'm going to pair from the ends because that's how I always do it. Okay, the seven of discs and the two of discs. The fact that your financial situation has failed to improve. Basically, that at the beginning of this situation, a big issue is the fact that despite many attempts on your part, you have not been able to achieve financial security, and that's definitely a downer, to put it lightly. The Seven of Cups and the Hanged Man. So you invest in some sort of pleasure that's really bad for you, and it may not even seem that it's bad for you, but there's just this general sense of lethargy and laziness again that I was saying at the beginning of the reading. You're in this very sacrificial pose of just accepting what comes your way because it doesn't feel like there is an opportunity for you to escape it. So again, it's lockdown. The Knight of Discs and Adjustment. So this does reference the fact that there are decisions that you have to make, and some of them might be harsh. I think Adjustment ill-aspected in this case, since the Knight of Discs and Adjustment don't really get along. Either you yourself are very stubborn in making these decisions and you don't really want to make them, or you're not sure you can, or the reality is that whatever decisions you have to make in regards to the situation are actually kind of harsh in that you might have to face yourself in a way and deal with, again, all these modes of living that you're used to, that you've taken very much for granted, I think. The Ten of Cups and the Princess of Cups. It's funny because these sort of represent the exact same thing. But again, I think this is just, you are very, very happy in your home life and in your relationship. You are wonderfully happy, and that's great. But there's always going to be a need for something more. The Ten of Cups here is a card that, even though it represents the fulfillment of material happiness, that is never going to fully satisfy us forever. That is always inevitably for every single person on this planet is eventually going to turn sour, and it might not even turn really gross sour. But it's still going to corrupt to some extent, and it's going to become boring, and you're going to want to change. The Four of Wands and the Empress. This is interesting, and I'm not really sure what to say about this. I mean, they're both elements of Venus, the Empress being Venus herself. And again, I think that represents you also have a very gentle nature, I think, is maybe what this is saying. You have a very nurturing personality, and you like to be situated where you are, and this is definitely like going off on the same vein as the previous pair of domestic pleasure. It's amplified by this, I think. It could be, it could speak to the fact that you're in a long-term, very much committed relationship that has stood the test of time. And so you obviously don't want to let it go, and you are very happy with it. But you also can't let it completely debilitate you either. Just because it's really, really wonderful doesn't necessarily mean that every single part of your being or your, psyche, so to speak, is entirely enthralled by it, okay? Because again, there's this part of you that just comes up right now, the Prince of Wands and Three of Discs, that really wants a change. You need a change in career, the Prince of Wands is telling you. The Prince of Wands tells you that you need to try something different as far as work. You're no longer happy doing what you do for work. And like I was saying at the very beginning, that might require a move, conceivably. and it might disturb your home life. And I know that that's something that would concern you, but you might have to just do it anyway. It depends. It really depends on how you want to fix the situation. The Ace of Cups and the Magus. Well, this is interesting because it's, in your previous reading, the first reading I did for you, rather, the Magus played an interesting role, and it showed. I know you've said that you lack confidence in your own skills and abilities, and this is really telling you that you have every ability in this situation to fix it, and to give yourself or create for yourself the happiness that you are instinctively looking for at the moment. You are totally within power, or within your own power in this situation, and this isn't a situation that is actually as overwhelming as you may think it is, because you have choices that you can make. It involves some trust. The Fool and the Ace of Discs. This is interesting because they are both very spiritual cards. I think this might say that. And I could read it very literally, and because the vibe, for whatever reason, what it's telling me is that, either money has been coming into you or will be coming into you at random in a way, or just from unexpected sources. You might start deriving an income from an unexpected thing. I don't know. I mean, that's just what intuition is telling me, but I'm not actually sure. But you do have two aces in a row, the Ace of Cups and the Ace of Discs. And the Ace of Discs really just represents, I think, a new source of income, basically. It's a pretty literal card. But the idea of a fresh start financially, I think. Or a gift of a new financial gift to some extent. Whereas the Fool represents Fool represents all sorts of things, but I think when you put the two together, you can either see it as unexpected gifts of money or financial support, or it could be, it depends on how I see the Ace of Discs. If I see the Ace of Discs as definitely being earth and not so much spirit, then this is more, and they don't really like each other in that case, and it's sort of saying that you're being foolish with money in the sense that you're focusing too much on it. You're living life too mundanely, and that would fit with what I was saying before. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. I don't want to hammer you over the head with that either. This isn't meant to, make you feel badly in any way, shape, or form. It's not like this is your fault or anything like that. And it's not necessarily even a bad thing. Okay. Next we have the Universe and the Lovers. These are negative towards each other. They don't really like each other. So I think that, I do think, though, that this does represent what I was saying before, and what I was just saying, that I think you see yourself as complete the way you are. As I was saying before, your universe is kind of small, and consists of only so many things, and only so many ideas of your own self. And I think the Lovers is telling you that, again, that you are, in doing that, neglecting a part of yourself that is, again, more adventurous, like the Prince of Wands, that extroverted, outgoing type who's willing to take risks, basically. Excuse me. Then we have the Eight of Swords and the Eight of Cups. So we see that this is the reason for your boredom, basically, that because you feel locked off from a part of yourself, and because you are unable to really make much of a decision about this. You basically are just very much bored with the whole thing. Right. And the last pairing we've got here is the 9 of discs and the Ace of Swords. And so, again, you know, I didn't realize that you had 3 aces in this string. That's really interesting, and that really emphasizes again the fact that this situation, as difficult as it may seem to work out mentally and to deal with all the details of, the universe is very much trying to help you in this situation, and it may not seem that way, but the fact that you have 3 aces really solidifies the idea that, you know, you're being given gifts to some extent in this situation. You know, you're being given opportunities, and you really don't want to, you know, look back on this moment and say that you squandered them in any way. So, I mean, this is the same sort of situation before with the Fool and the Ace of Discs. You know, if I read the Ace of Swords as spirit, which I'm more inclined to do, then I think it says the next step for you is to really deal with your financial situation. But you know, I think if I, going back to this pairing, you know, if I was right about, you know, random sources of money coming in or from unexpected places in some way, if that continues to work for you and continues to give you options, you know, really use that to your advantage. Don't put that money into trivial things. You know, really use it as a springboard because it's being given to you for a reason. And in general, with money, you know, you might want to try to be a little more frugal. I don't know, you know, the fact was that with the 9 of discs before, when I read that, it was kind of like you were deriving either, you know, self-worth or sense of accomplishment from having nice things or being able to do nice things or, you know, luxury type things. This is not to say that you know, own a Mercedes, but it's just this idea of aesthetic value. The 9 of discs is a very interesting card to me because it is Venus in Virgo in the number 9. So there's this great fertility aspect to the 9. But there's also this very sometimes flashy aspect of it. I think the 9, in terms of relation to its whole suit, you know, the whole suit of Earth and discs represents matter and physical existence. And I think the 9 really represents the pretty part of existence, the part of existence or material things that appeals to us on an emotional level, you know, appeals to our sense of self-worth and that kind of thing. So the Ace of Swords is very different from that. The Ace of Swords is kind of an aha moment. And an opportunity to see things clearly and to use the truth to your advantage. So it says the situation in this operation ends with that being the final, or the final outcome or the next step for the situation. Okay? So I hope this is all very clear, and that I broke it down in a way that made sense. And if you were, you know, watching this video as a tutorial type of thing, to try to learn how to do some opening of the key type stuff, I hope you found it helpful. Alright, so I will see you in the next video, Operation 2, in which we do the 12 piles for the zodiacal houses. Alright, see you then.